Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to PositivePower21.org and Spreaker.com/PositivePower21. You're listening to Inspirational Vibes with Sabrina.
Hello, my name is Sabrina Brown, and I welcome you to my podcast segments on the Jerry Royce Live Connection. Over the next few weeks, I will be delving into topics that matter to us in an effort to help encourage, motivate, and empower us about the different things that we go through in life. Each week, you can expect a segment about different things, such as why we choose to dream what we dream, why we want to fulfill our destinies, how we can overcome things in life as a heart disease survivor. I would love to produce a segment about that, just to let you know that you can make it through any curveball that life throws at you, because life is indeed full of them. We'll also have some lighter topics about why you may choose to write or why you may choose to publish a book. As an author, that is very near and dear to me, and a lot of people have a passion about writing, so I want to engage you in some of those topics. And there'll be a number of other things like positive thinking and what it means to have a strong mother in your life. And I'll be sharing some stories about my mom in those types of segments. So I thank you in advance for listening, and I value your opinion on them. So please give me some feedback and let me know about other topics that you may want me to speak of. I am an adjunct professor. I have written a poetry book and published that, and also co-published with another great group under the Kingdom Builders Publications here in Columbia, South Carolina. And I just encourage you all to listen, to tune in to the other great authors and speakers under the Jerry Royce Worldwide Connection as well. And I thank you in advance. And I can also be reached at my website, www.abls and poetrybooks with an S at the end.com. I thank you very much, and God bless.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to PositivePower21.org and Spreaker.com/PositivePower21. You're listening to Inspirational Vibes with Sabrina. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to PositivePower21.org and Spreaker.com/PositivePower21. You're listening to Inspirational Vibes with Sabrina.
Hello, Internet radio listeners. Thank you for listening to Sabrina Brown's segments. Today, I would love to talk about why I wrote a poetry book. So many people have asked me that question since the inception of the book last year, and it is amazing the responses that I generate just trying to think of the right answer to that question, because there's so many different reasons why. First of all, I wrote a poetry book last year called Poetic Rhythms of My Heart. And it is a book that comprises of over 60 poems, and they are on things like love and contributing and celebrating others and life lessons, things that we have learned along the way, things of that nature. So it is a blessing that I have that accomplishment behind me. But what created the idea or the interest in writing to begin with? In my youth, I've always been an avid student learner, and one of my favorite subjects was always English. I enjoyed writing and learning words and learning how to spell them. And even now, I know I need to increase my vocabulary even more, but I always had an interest in reading and writing. And when we began to study the different genres within literature, one of my favorite ones was poetry. And I remember very early on in some of my early English teachers' classes, like God rest her soul, Mrs. Barbara Pouchet, I developed a love for Robert Frost, Maya Angelou, and Langston Hughes. They quickly became some of my favorites. And as I went on to high school at C.E. Murray High School in Greeleyville, South Carolina, shout out to my home area, I had the distinct pleasure of having a class under Mrs. Paulette King. And Miss King read to us what she called a backwards poem. It was an assignment that she had to do for a college project that she had in one of her English classes. And it was so intriguing how she played with verse and played with different symbolisms and different things of that nature and different literary devices through that poem. And she would lead you one way, take you back another, lead you one way, take you back another. I was like, oh my God, that is so creative. And by that time, because I was in high school at that time, I had already written a number of poems myself, but it wasn't something that I did very often. So as I went on to college, I had to take a class or English classes under the late Dr. Ruth L. Strickland. And she was a writer horse. I mean, she taught us the importance of writing. She taught us that we didn't know how to write yet. She made us rewrite so many drafts. It was absolutely amazing. But what I took out of that is that there is a craft to writing, and it picked back up my love for actually developing a finished project. And throughout my college career, as different things happened to me, liking guys and pledging and just all of these different dynamics that you go through while living the college experience, it made me pull back that love for writing poetry again. So my collection began to grow once again. And by the time I finished college, I know I had probably written 20 to 30 pieces or more, so my collection was beginning to grow. And as I shared a couple of pieces with some other people through the years, they would tell me, oh, wow, you can really write, and it was pleasing to my ears to hear the support I would get from other people. And as time went on, I remember writing a couple of poems to my parents. One in particular was for an essay contest that I had to write to win a scholarship through Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority. And one of those was to create some type of creative piece to describe something that meant significant importance to you. So I wrote a poem about my parents, and it was entitled The Pair That God Gave to Me. And they were so thrilled about it. I remember when I won the scholarship, we had an award ceremony, and my parents were there, and I got to read it to them. And they received a lot of joy just from the words that I chose to write. So it was still burning within me to develop that love and to continue to produce poetic pieces. So the love and the interest was there from a youth, and it continued to grow as an adult. And again, it was just amazing to me how God would put different things in your spirit, and you would get inspired, or I would get inspired by different things. Sometimes it would be just as simple as seeing a flower or a catchphrase that someone dropped in my ear. And I was like, oh, wow, that would be a good piece for a poem. So therefore, my love for it continued to grow. Also, my father, I have to attribute a lot of the poetry book that I wrote to my dad, because I remember him telling us about his experience as a student, a high school student. And he always talked about how he valued being a student, and he always was determined to make good grades. And most of the years he was the head of his class. And he even kept many report cards to show us how successful he was. And he could even remember some of the things that happened to him back in high school, even though he graduated in 1960. He can give an account of different questions that some of the teachers asked him, and he remembered the ones he got right and also the one that tripped him. And I was like, wow. But my father was, because of the death of his dad when he graduated high school, he didn't go on to college because he stayed back to help his mom, even though he really, really wanted to go. And it amazed me, even though he didn't further his education beyond high school, just how articulate he was. When I would use chopped English, chopped grammar, because where we from, a very rural town in Williamsburg County of South Carolina. It is, we almost have that Geechee connection of Charleston, but just at a little slight different, a little different impact. But it is still there in us. So sometimes he would hear me chop some verbs or leave some verbs out, and he would be like, Sabrina, you talking like that? And I would be like, oh yeah, Dad, sorry. And then I would turn on my proper English grammar or whatever. But it was so funny going back and forth with him. And it just made me more cognitive of how I was speaking and how I was writing. And even I remember going back to Dr. Strickland's class. She was like, you're going to write how you talk. So if you practice talking incorrectly, it's going to affect your writing in the long run. So those kind of things kind of stuck with me. So I give a lot of acknowledgement to my father for giving me that base of writing and just treating the English language with respect and trying to at least speak clearly and properly and being articulate and just aware of the importance of good grammar use. So I give him a lot of acknowledgement for helping the foundation of my book be birthed. And also, what really did it for me was meeting Miss Louise Smith. She is the owner and operator of Kingdom Builders Publications. And when I met her, I didn't know. I just saw this lady at my church who had a very angelic voice. And I was like, wow, I really want to meet her because it is amazing what she did with that song. Later on in the, after the church service was over, I introduced myself to her. She told me about the keyboarding lessons that she taught because I always wanted to learn piano as well. And then she also told me about the publication company. And I was like, wow, I really need to network with you. And so our relationship began to be formed that particular day. And then she told me of a writers club that she had. And it was called Pen of a Ready Writer Society. And I was so honored to join it because I could fellowship again with like-minded people who love to write, who love to read, who can help me to continue to flourish with the ideas that I have and keep me motivated about writing. Because as many people know or don't know, if you're not a writer, it does take constant motivation to continue with the craft. So after meeting her and joining the club, she introduced the idea that she was having a writer's contest. And the prize of the contest would be for the winner to get a free publication with her company. And I was like, oh, my God, this is what I need to do. And I really need to try to win this thing to fray some costs. And thank God, I actually won in the poetry division. So I won my publication through her company. And that really gave me the motivation to finish the job and get it done. So after that, the process came with selecting which of these poems from this big collection that I had to try to narrow it down to a book and then try to categorize them in some way that they would actually have a flow and a meaning to the chapters that were produced in the book. So that is kind of how it happened for me and why it happened. And I also wanted to show that, again, I'm from a very rural town. I wanted to show that regardless of where you're from, what odds may be stacked against you, if you put your mind to doing something, that it could be done. If you pray and keep the faith, It is amazing what kind of things that we can accomplish, regardless of where we've been or where we're from or who may be supporting you or who may not be supporting you. It is amazing what we can do if we really rely on ourselves to get it done. So I wanted to kind of show that it could be done, and the choices were ours to make in our lives. And I want to leave you with a couple of quotes that I found so very interesting about writing. Ben Franklin stated, "Either you can write something worth reading or do something worth writing about." I think that is very crafty. There is nothing to writing. All you can do is sit down to a typewriter and bleed. Ernest Hemingway, an author. And then finally, one of my favorite rapper guys from North Carolina, J. Cole, stated, "Usually I start with a beat. I start making a beat, and my producer side is making that beat happen. And on a good day, my rapper side will jump in and start the writing process. It may end up with a verse, and sometimes it just happens that way." So whatever we do, if we just put our heart into it, if we just allow ourselves to bleed into our crafts, if we allow ourselves to believe that a finished product will come, whether it's making jewelry or making soap. Some of my friends are beginning to make hair care products like Dr. Sandler Gordon and Dr. Bridges, who makes these very nice creams and things of that nature made out of shea butter. But it is amazing what we can do if we put our mind to our craft and just kind of bleed in it. So no matter whether it's writing, no matter whether it's making music, no matter whether it's developing some type of product, always believe in yourself and always be determined to make your dreams come true. So that is why I write. That is why I chose to write a book to publish, and just a little bit about what you can do with the dreams that you have. So I hope you find this podcast meaningful, and stay tuned for many more to come through the Jerry Royce Live Connection. Stay tuned, my friends, and I'm out.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to PositivePower21.org and Spreaker.com/PositivePower21. You're listening to Inspirational Vibe with Sabrina. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to PositivePower21.org and Spreaker.com/PositivePower21. You're listening to Inspirational Vibe with Sabrina.
Hello, radio listeners. I thank you so much for tuning into my segment, the Sabrina Brown segment of the Jerry Royce Live Worldwide Connection. Today I will be speaking on the power of positive thinking. I think that so oftentimes we can get caught up in what we deal with in life and the things that happen to us, that it can damage the way that we speak, even about ourselves and about the things we're going through. I think sometimes we nurture in the spirit of complaining and whining to the point where we never speak positively. We never say, I'm going to make it. I'm going to be rich. I'm going to make my dreams come true. I am going to get that promotion, even if you have been denied multiple times for it. There is power in the tongue, and there is power in positive thinking and speaking. And this is definitely medicine to myself, because I don't do it all the time either. Even sometimes if you have been ill and received a negative doctor's report, it is still good to be more powerful than that report that you've given, because the last say so always comes from God. And we always have to be mindful of that. Even if you have been overlooked on your job for something that you know that you're qualified for, whether it be a promotion or an increase in pay, even if these things are happening to you, it is still good to say, even though it didn't happen now, I know that it is on the way. I know that what lies ahead for me is greater than what I'm going through now. Just to give you a little personal testimony, in 2007, I underwent an experience with walking pneumonia. Didn't even know what was going on at the time, but I found myself sick when I was on this a retreat for my sorority, and I found myself ill. I didn't know what was going on. So when I came back to Columbia, South Carolina, I went to the doctor the next day. He told me that my heart was enlarged from the walking pneumonia that I had. And I was like, oh, my God. So ever since then, I have been battling with a heart issue. And it is amazing how I have had to tell myself so many times after that diagnosis, because it later went to where I had to have surgery and everything like that. I have really had to tell myself, Sabrina, you're still here. God still has you here. There's still more for you to do. You can't work full time anymore. I was in my 20s, so it was very hard for me to face the news that I would not be able to work full time anymore. I was an internal auditor, and I taught part-time at night at the time when I got ill. So it was definitely a blow for me. But I made up in my mind, and I had to do it multiple times, that I still was going to live. I still had things to do. I still had dreams that I could fulfill. It would just not be an internal audit at the time because I couldn't focus on a full-time career anymore. But it allowed me to do the things that I was even more passionate about, because later on, after God had healed me and delivered me, I was able to still go back to teaching on a part-time basis. And teaching has always been my greatest love, my greatest career path. And in addition to that, I also got to delve into my writing even more. I write resumes for people, and I really do enjoy writing poetry. And I published a book last year. And so these types of things were the things that I can depend on and tell myself, well, even though, again, you're not working full time anymore, and even though you're still young and you miss that camaraderie with your friends and your coworkers, you still have these other things that you can do. You can volunteer more, and you can spend more time with family and give you more flexibility. So no matter what we go through, we have to tell ourselves, even if I get redirected, even if thus and so happens, I'm still going to count it all joy, because we know that God is still going to work it out for us. And it can always be so much worse. Even though I have my issues with my heart, there are still people who have to go through chemo and dialysis and have oxygen tanks and all of these other things. So it could be an even greater medical issue that we're going through. And even those type of people, there's still some people who would love to be in your place because they're not there yet with the treatments that you may be going through. So we always have to tell ourselves, it could be worse. God's still going to turn it around. And it is up to me to keep the faith and keep believing that regardless of what the now looks like, tomorrow can be even more promising, yield much greater results. And I'll just leave you with this scripture. In Proverbs 18:21, it says that the power of life and death lies with the tongue. So you can kill yourself physically, emotionally, by poisoning yourself with thoughts like, I'm not worth anything. I'm not good as the next man. I have failed at whatever it is that you're trying to achieve. These types of things poison and kill our own spirit, let alone what someone else may be telling you. But the real power and strength comes from what you are telling yourself. So always tell yourself that you are great. You are going places, that you are, no matter where you are, there is still so much greater that can be done, even through your life. I remember watching the movie The Help. Viola Davis told a little girl, you is kind, you is smart, you is beautiful. And those things we have to keep telling ourselves because they are powerful. They improve our self-confidence, our self-esteem, and it takes that to make it in life. You have to feel good about yourself, regardless of what mistakes you have made, regardless of where you have been, what your upbringing may have been like. There is still so much greatness that can come out of you. But we have to be our biggest cheerleaders and our biggest fans in life. So remember to have a positive tongue and have that same approach with other people as well. Don't kill other people's dreams. Don't kill other people's hopes by the things that you say to them. That's not fair. And that is not Christian-like. If we want to be Christian-like, then we can't kill the dreams and the hopes of others. So many times, those negative words can hurt so much from other people that it can kill the dreams that you have within you. But don't allow that to be. Don't be a negative naysayer for other people. Cheer for them, clap for them, celebrate with them. And when they're down, help lift them up. If all of us would take that approach, it would be a much greater world. That doesn't mean that you have to agree with everything what someone is doing. That doesn't mean that you have to be in their corner for every decision that they make. But it does mean that you can be encouraging, engaging, and definitely positive. So I challenge you to keep a positive tongue. Keep something positive coming out of your mouth about yourself and about others that you're connected to. I pray that you receive this, and I hope that you have a great day. And as always, thank you for listening to Sabrina's segment on the Jerry Royce Live Connection. Be blessed.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to positivepower21.org and Spreaker.com/positivepower21. You're listening to Inspirational Vibe with Sabrina. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to positivepower21.org and Spreaker.com/positivepower21. You're listening to Inspirational Vibe with Sabrina.
Hello, my name is Sabrina, and I thank you for tuning in to Sabrina Brown's segment on positivepower21.org of Jerry Royce Worldwide. I was asked to describe my first experience or my experience on my first experience as a podcaster. This is very new for me because even though I have done public speaking in the past and I don't really mind doing it, I've never actually had to record myself for different people to hear me. So this is very new for me. And I also love writing. I published a poetry book last year, and I just get a joy out of writing for people, be it resumes or other business documents. So the podcast was a very different thing. I literally had to pray over it because I was somewhat nervous, even though, again, I know I love to speak. My dad, I get it honestly from him. He is definitely a communicator, and he speaks at different things from time to time, especially local funerals in our area, because he's a very articulate man and a very great storyteller. But I always had the passion of also doing some motivational speaking on the side. That has always been a dream of mine. So this particular opportunity came to me through an experience I had with Ms. Louise Smith. She introduced me to Jerry Royce, and I did an interview with him, and then he gave me the opportunity to produce these segments in affiliation with his network. So my first experience was definitely to pray, to get over my nerves, to speak with some of my friends about it, just to get some encouragement to go through with the opportunity. Because even though I knew it was great, you know, that doubt comes in your mind like, oh, what if I'm not good? What if I don't have material to speak about and these different things? But after I got over those things and after God kind of calmed me down, then I just went to researching what are some topics that I could talk about? What are some things that may be engaging to people? And what are some things that you have always wanted to say to people? And just realizing that opportunities don't always present themselves to people. So when they do come, we have to be ready for them. So this has been what my first experiences as a podcaster has been like. I definitely want to do research on every topic that I talk about. And I also want to bring in some other people to communicate with you also on the different things that we'll be talking about as we go along and as we build additional podcasts or webinar segments. So I look forward to the journey. I am very grateful and appreciative for the opportunity. And I just thank God for opening this door for me and just seeing where it could lead. And I thank you for listening. God bless always. I'm out.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to PositivePower21.org and Spreaker.com/PositivePower21. You're listening to Inspirational Vibe with Sabrina.